Honey, get an ice scraper. I have to catch a flight, and this hotel key card just isn't working.
Oh, I took it to scrape off the 1,000 no vacancy stickers you put all over the house. And by the way, we get it. You love your podcast. Hey, I think I just saw one on our cat.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast. It's me, Glenn, and I am coming at you from chilly, snowbound New York. I think we just had a giant bomb cyclone or something like that. I still don't know what it is, but I'm glad that I am here working from home. My family's had off for the last couple of days, and they are very lucky. They are very happy. Doesn't make me very happy because they're bothering me, and it's hard for me to get my job done. All right, so speaking of my job, make sure you check out novacancynews.com. Brand new site. It's only been up 6 weeks or so. Let me know what you think, and I'd be remiss to say, if I didn't put this out there, the show is brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy technology platform. Thousands of hotels are using it to make more money and beat market growth rates. Be sure to see stories about Redline Hotels, a great client of theirs, and more at getrevenueresults.com. And I should say that I'm going to be at the AAHOA convention March 27th through 30th. But before I get into that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Chip Rogers, who's in charge of all of AAHOA. Hey, Chip, how are you today?
Glenn, I am doing great. I know it is very, very cold in the Northeast where you are, and it, frankly, is very cold in Atlanta where I am.
Yeah.
Driving to work today and seeing temperatures in the teens is not what we expect.
It is not. Now, at least here, we can handle it somewhat, not like folks in Wisconsin or stuff, but I feel really badly for a guy like you because you're not used to this kind of a thing, and your whole city, they seem to panic. I recall that one time where it snowed like a half an inch, and then the highway stopped, and everyone was kind of trapped in their cars for a month.
Yeah, luckily I headed home early that day. But the interesting thing about Atlanta, for those who have not had the joy of being here, is one, we don't have any snow removal equipment because
Right.
we don't get it often enough to invest. Two, the roads are very curvy and very hilly, and we have an enormous amount of tree density, which means that you don't get a lot of direct sunlight to begin melting any ice that forms on the roads, and therefore we have a lot of black ice. So,
Right.
Number one, people don't know how to drive in it. Number two, the conditions are quite treacherous. So we don't do well with it. The situation we have now is just it's sunny. It's just very, very cold. So
Yeah.
we will make it.
All right. Well, listen, I would love to talk about snow talk for the next half an hour, but I mean, come on. We got a lot of great things to talk about. The first thing I want to do is say thanks so much because I am excited and delighted that I'm the official podcast of AAHOA Convention and Trade Show, March 27th through 30th at the Gaylord National, just outside Washington, D.C. at the National Harbor. So thanks for working with me on that deal. Last year was so great. I'm excited to be doing it again this year in 2018.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and for everyone listening, make sure you stop by the booth. You'll be able to see the booth. Glenn will be in almost like a glass cage. But it was fantastic last year, the first year we did it, and it'll be even better this year. So we're looking forward to it.
I think so. And if it reminds me of that 1970s after-school special, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, starring John Travolta. I'll be there. I'll be in the plastic booth, not allowed to actually interact with anybody out there. But, just come by, put your hand up against the plastic window. I'll put my hand up against there, too. We'll have a kinship. But in all seriousness, I'm excited to be there because I'm going to be capturing all these great stories and advice from, the thousands of people that are living that American dream every day that are part of the AAHOA Association, including some of the biggest names in the industry. And, Chip, it's just so much fun because to me, as we've always discussed, the AAHOA crew is just such an amazing inspiration, I think, to all people, everywhere when it comes to being able to see that American dream play out in real time.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Glenn. It's a joy on my part to get to work with them. I get the opportunity every day to wake up and go to work with people who are wanting to not only achieve the American dream, but once they have, to expand it and hand it off to the next generation in a way that, frankly, we haven't seen too much in this country in quite some time. It's just a really heartwarming story of what our members have been able to accomplish. Many of them coming here, or at least their parents coming here with no money, not the ability to speak, they couldn't speak English, very few connections, certainly no political connections, and to see what they've been able to do over the last 40 years is, it's a story that really sends the message that it doesn't matter where you're from. If you can come to America, you have an opportunity to make it. And we love telling that story, and we appreciate all you do to help tell it.
Thanks. And be sure, guys, if you're listening to the show right now, go back to the show I had 2 weeks ago called Purely Politics, where I actually talked to a person who's running for Congress right now in New York City, whose parents came from India. They emigrated to this country, and it's an absolutely amazing story to see that you could go from being a stranger in a strange land to having a child running for Congress in one generation. How amazing and inspirational is that? And Chip, the one thing I'm seeing with politics is a lot of your association members seem to be getting heavily involved now on the national level and are running for Congress. I've seen a couple before, but since I put up this story 2 weeks ago with Suraj Patel, several other folks from AAHOA have reached out to me saying they too are running for positions in Congress. Really interesting. What's your take on that?
Well, I think people are now recognizing the role that government plays in their life, whether that is good or bad. You can make that decision, but it's going to impact your business. It's going to impact your life. So you can either become involved, or you can sit on the side and wish that you were involved. And we've been really actively engaged in not just Washington, D.C., but really all across the country. And because of that, our members are becoming more comfortable with the process, and now we have quite a few of them who are running for Congress. But I would be remiss to point out that we actually have 2 sitting members of Congress who are already AAHOA members. One is Congressman Ami Bera from the great state of California.
He's a doctor as well, correct?
He is a physician, and his parents and his brother run the hotel business, but he grew up in it. He is a member, and also Congressman Ralph Norman, who is a Republican from South Carolina, who won a special election a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
He is a hotel owner and developer, and also a dues-paying member of AAHOA. So there are already 2 members of Congress that are actually dues-paying members, and we're looking to get even more.
That's absolutely fascinating and amazing to me, because it wasn't all that long ago. It was in the time of my career where it seemed like the folks that were part of the AAHOA Association were just fighting to be heard. Now, not only is everybody listening, but you guys are commanding the conversation.
Well, the best way to be actively involved is, frankly, to get actively involved at the closest level. And so, we opened up our office in Washington, D.C. 4 years ago, and we have gone from one full-time staff member to 8.
Wow.
We've moved twice because of space considerations. But we've also, most importantly, built those relationships. I can tell you that years ago, when we first went to Washington, D.C., we would go into a meeting, and our goal would be to leave that meeting with the person whom we met with understanding what the acronym AAHOA actually stood for.
Right.
That was the goal back then. The goal today, of course, is to continue to build on what truly is personal relationships with hundreds of members of Congress, just so we can tell them that story of the American dream and it being alive and well in AAHOA members, so that they know that the legislation they pass can either impact us in a very positive way, like tax reform recently did, or a negative way, like healthcare reform did a couple of years ago, and they can fully understand how that impacts just your Main Street mom-and-pop hotel owners, business people who really make this country work. And we, at least I think, we are one of the best representations of Main Street America that you can find anywhere.
Oh, I think so too. That's why I think this association is so interesting. Aside from the fact that it's so vibrant, that you have all these great stories to tell, and you're really affecting change. All right. So the real purpose of this call today was I want to review what happened in 2017, see what your agenda is for 2018. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get this show on the road. Let's talk about the most recent achievement from your perspective, tax reform. Biggest change in over 30 years. Your members have been clamoring for that. Tell me a little bit about what you were hoping to get done, what was done, and if those two things align nicely for you.
Yeah, absolutely. This, Glenn, honestly, is something we started working on about almost 4 years ago.
Wow. And
with the president's signature, it became ours and many other organizations' largest success story in the world of advocacy. So what began was a few years ago an attempt by Republicans, Democrats, and the president, all three kind of aligned to propose getting rid of what's known as the 1031 like-kind exchange. And anybody that's involved in the world of real estate knows that is an incredible investment tool that allows you to buy and sell properties without paying the capital, or I should say, deferring the capital gains
Right.
tax until such time as you cash out. So if you sell a property for $10 million and you go buy another property, if you invest the entire $10 million into the next property, then you would have no tax liability until you cash out of that property. So we started years ago trying to defend that, and as we began moving down this road and working with members of Congress, explaining to them the importance of protecting the 1031 exchange, we then began to realize that there are other things on the table that once the Trump administration came in and members of the House Ways and Means Committee began talking about other ideas that we thought were fantastic. For example, a 20% deduction for the pass-through businesses. Many of our members are S corporations or partnerships, and they will greatly benefit from this 20% deduction for pass-through businesses. Making sure that we have full and immediate expensing for business assets. As you know, in the hotel world, you spend a lot of money reinvesting into your property,
Right.
and we want to make sure that we can immediately expense that money. If a hotel owner has to buy 150 brand new televisions, that's pretty expensive. It'd be nice to expense that, and under this new tax law that they can do that. And of course, our members, perhaps more than just about any business association out there, our members are truly family businesses. So they spend 20, 30, 40 years building this business, which could include 1 hotel, 2 hotels, 10 hotels. And the value of those hotels gets into the millions of dollars. Now, of course, they put their entire life into it, their life
Right.
savings, and being able to pass that to the next generation was critically important. And so the ability for Congress to double the exemption on the death tax was critically important for our members, because now they can pass that to the next generation, and it doesn't mean that the next generation has to sell off a couple of hotel assets just to pay the taxes.
Right. Yeah. This seems to be one of those things that I don't think was fully understood by the American public at large. I think that most people think, oh, it's some super rich guy that has like $50 million and doesn't want to pay any more taxes on it. I've always been more pragmatic about it. I feel like if you've already paid taxes on this money and you've earned all of this stuff and you've made smart investments and built a business over the years, why should you have to pay the government more money just because you died? I mean, I've heard so many stories of, like, take the farm business, for example, where you have to sell the family farm to pay the taxes on it when you should never have had to do that at all. So it's the same thing you're saying with the hospitality business, that if you have a portfolio of hotels, you're going to have to sell, you would have in the past had to sell some off simply with the misfortune of whoever the head of the company was passing away. That doesn't seem fair at all.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. So, I mean, let's take an example. Let's say you have 2 Holiday Inn Express hotels, and you have equity in those equal to, say, $5 million, right? Mm-hmm. But under the old law, if the owner died and passed that along to his son or daughter, they may have to sell one of those 2 hotels just to pay the taxes, even if they're only making a profit of a couple $100,000 off of them. Oh, yeah. Because the assets are worth millions of dollars, they may have to sell one off. Under the new law, they can continue to operate the business. Which
is great, which makes a lot of sense. And I think that's just fair and just. And especially when you're thinking about how inflation has affected the cause of pricing, they needed to make a change with the threshold on that as well. So do you feel that as far as the AAHOA organization is concerned, that you got everything you were looking for in this recent tax reform package, or are there certain things that you're going to need to work on in the next few years?
Well, with respect to taxes, look, there's no perfect bill, but I will say this comes as close to what we had requested as anything we could have possibly imagined. This is a very, very positive piece of legislation for small business owners, and if the market is any indication, things are going well with this particular tax bill. So we're very happy with it. It doesn't mean we don't have other issues, because we've got a lot of other issues that we'll be working on moving into the future. But on taxes, we're very happy with what was accomplished. Okay,
so when it comes to taxes next year, could you make sure that they fix this not deducting taxes thing? Because here in New York, I'm going to get seriously penalized, and it's very painful. I think I'm going to have to start a few pass-through corporations in order to try to fix this problem. But
or you know what you could do, Glenn, is that you good folks in New York, and I love New York. I used to do a lot of work there. Mm-hmm. The people are great. But you could elect people in New York that lower your state taxes and your local taxes. That's another remedy to that problem.
That's a novel idea, Chip. and here I thought we should just be raising taxes all the time. All right, that's a great point. I'm going to start to think about that. We've got a very confrontational situation happening here. I'm in the 1st District of New York. I'll let you guys Google the situation that's happening here, but it's going to be an interesting election year, that's for sure. So one of the other things, Chip, that you've been thinking about and had your eyes on the prize is regulation. I know that the AAHOA organization has felt that over the last couple of years, or the last number of years, that there's been so many rules that needed to be gotten rid of. What are you thinking in terms of regulation for 2018? But maybe let's take a step back and say what's changed in 2017 and where do you hope it to go?
Well, the 2017 regulatory environment is about as good as we could have ever imagined. The president, to his credit, when he talked about reducing regulations, has done exactly that, and he's done it on an historic level. It is estimated that he has actually reduced more regulations in his first year in office than any other president ever did in 4 years in office. And, of course, most presidents, it goes up. It doesn't go down.
Right.
So he has certainly followed through on that. One area of change that we felt ourselves and the entire hospitality industry was united on was this issue of joint employer.
Right.
And there could not have been a bigger move in benefiting the franchise world than the regulation change that the administration helped push through the National Labor Relations Board here recently. For those of our listeners who don't recall, the joint employer was a ruling that came out of the NLRB a couple of years ago under the previous administration, which basically said that the employees of a franchisee are actually jointly employed by the franchisor. Now, that has a devastating effect on the franchise model because, as you know, Glenn, franchisees are small business owners.
That's right.
They didn't get into business to manage the franchisor's employees. In fact, they do the hiring, the firing, the setting of the wages, the scheduling, everything that has to do with the employee. They're their employees. They're not the employee of the franchisor. So, for example, at a Marriott hotel, the person who owns the Marriott hotel employs all of the employees there. The Marriott Corporation does not. But under the old ruling, they said that in that model of franchisor and franchisee, they were jointly employed, which was, again, a terrible, terrible ruling. Mm-hmm. This administration appointed people to the National Labor Relations Board that recently, just really in the last month, changed the ruling on that and went back to the traditional definition of joint employer, which meant that if you were jointly employed, you had to have direct control over the employee. I know for some this sounds kind of technical.
It does.
But for anybody in the franchise world, they kind of looked at this as a nuclear bomb because
Absolutely.
It really changed the entire franchise model. And when we think about franchise businesses, it's not just hotels. It's basically every restaurant that you go to,
right.
Department store that you go to. These are all franchises. And under the ruling that was passed a couple of years ago, they were all in jeopardy of having to change the entire way that they operate in a very negative way. So we're very happy with the way it went back to the old definition. It would be nice if Congress would pass a bill that the president could sign to put this in law permanently. But as of right now, we're in great shape.
Yeah, so I do want to try to make it a little bit clearer. If this joint employer thing had stayed in place, what would be a negative situation that could theoretically happen? Because if I'm, an armchair politician, I'm going to say, there's no problem, no big deal. I don't see what the issue really is. So what is the real world effect that would have happened?
Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, the reason that it was done was because organized labor
That's right.
Wanted this. Now, keep in mind, this is the way that it works. Think about if you are a union and you want to go unionize a specific hotel, you must go to that individual hotel. You must have the union election, and, of course, a majority of the employees have to vote to join that union. Well, under joint employer, if the franchisor is now jointly employing all of the franchisee employees, then you no longer have to go hotel to hotel to hotel to hotel.
I see.
You just go straight to the top, and you can have an election and get every single employee at once. So that was the impetus for even passing this in the first place, was to unionize all of these franchise businesses. But the real-world impact beyond just the unionization was, first of all, let's talk about liability. So if you're a franchise, and I'm going to use IHG Corporation because I can literally see their headquarters
right.
in my office right now. And an employee at a local Holiday Inn in Dubuque, Iowa, does something that causes liability for that Holiday Inn, well, under the old law, of course, that employee only works for that Holiday Inn, and if there was liability, it would be placed on the owner of that Holiday Inn. Under the new interpretation of joint employer, now that person could sue the IHG corporation themselves, claiming that that employee actually worked for IHG. And in fact, within weeks, literally weeks of the ruling, there were 2 such cases where employees or hotel owners were being sued because of the actions of an employee, and those lawsuits named the franchise itself as a co-defendant. So we saw it happening already. And then the last example I'll give you even goes down to the small business level at a more minute detail. Let's say that you run a Wendy's. I'm looking at a Wendy's outside my window here, right? And Wendy's goes and hires a contracting business to mow the lawn and do all the landscaping. Well, now the Wendy's owner, according to this ruling, could be held to be jointly employing the employees of the landscaping company. So now if they do anything, the Wendy's owner is going to be liable for it. So it goes all the way down to any staff employee of any company that you're doing business with. So it was a very dangerous and puzzling ruling unless you understood that the genesis of all of this was to increase unionization among private businesses. And that's what they wanted, but the results could have been devastating.
Of course, and then you have the other component of it, artificially rising wages, which could adversely affect the consumers and the business operators all at the same time.
Well, yeah, I mean, because now the under today's law, under today's definition, thankfully, the new or the old definition that was reinstated, the Wendy's can determine what they're going to pay their employees based on this location and the demand and the market and everything, as opposed to the Obama administration ruling would have said that the Wendy's franchise itself would dictate or could dictate what the local employees were making. And, you as a business owner, you're not going to get into business if you don't have the control of your own employees. That's why we talked about the devastating effect on the franchise model is if you don't have control of your own staff, why are you going to go into business?
That's crazy because, I mean, if you're already a hotel operator, you're already paying a significant amount of money to buy into the particular system. And then to lose that other control sounds to me like it makes it almost impossible to operate freely. So, you're right. Why even bother? You might as well just get a job working for somebody.
Exactly. And we need to encourage entrepreneurship in America. It's what makes us great.
Speaking of entrepreneurship, feel free to support me at patreon.com because I'm an entrepreneur here. So go to patreon.com/novacancy. But most important, Chip, I have to ask you, what do you like more at Wendy's, the chili or the baked potato? I mean, this is hard talk, I know.
Okay, so as a youngster, growing up in a family where my father decided to teach us the value of hard work by making sure we paid for everything ourselves, and as a father now, I'm very thankful he did that, by the way. I did, in fact, work at Wendy's, and so knowing the behind-the-scenes preparation that goes into each of those two products, I will go with the potato.
Excellent. Well, I will tell you something, Chip. I also worked at Wendy's, and I am fully aware that today's chili is yesterday's overcooked hamburger. So I, too, am on your side. And, this is where I have to brag a little bit, but, I did get promoted from fries to grill assistant until I took over the entire takeout grill myself. So I'm feeling pretty good. I could flip those burgers and get them on the buns really fast. Very exciting time.
Teaches you work ethic, for sure.
Yeah, it really does. And, to totally go off the rails for a second, I'm finding as a father, it's so hard to teach my kids those same lessons now because everything is so plentiful here in the United States. We're just so fortunate and lucky that teaching them that grit component, to have a harder, to put some more effort into life, to realize that everything doesn't come so easy is definitely a challenge we have to think about going further.
Yes, I had a conversation recently with my college-age daughter who was home for Christmas break, and the conversation centered on who ought to be paying for her automobile insurance, and we did not see it the same way, as you might imagine.
Yeah. Speaking of money, I'm curious how you feeling about the economy in general, especially the hotel economy. I've been saying for years things are great, and I thought there was a lot of negativity in the air. I'm not seeing that anymore. I'm feeling when I go to industry events, everybody's pretty jubilant.
Everybody, you're exactly right. There's a lot of great things happening. There's some good things happening, and of course, there's always some concerns. Material costs are going up, no question. Labor costs are significantly higher. And then when you look at the labor pool, recognizing, I just saw the statistics that came out today, we're at the lowest unemployment rate in some 20 years. Yep. Finding good employees is very, very difficult right now. However, the flip side of that is people are willing to travel. People have a lot of confidence. There's a lot of investment that is happening right now. We still have motor fuel prices in the $2.50 range, and it's been that way now for about 6 years. That just gives people a lot of confidence in getting in their car and traveling, and of course, that also relates to what it costs to get onto an airplane. So people are willing to travel. People have extra money that they're willing to take a vacation with. So the industry, I think, is still really strong. And as you indicated, Glenn, this should have been the time where we began to see a little bit of a downturn just looking at historical cycles, but we're not seeing that downturn. In fact, we're seeing a pretty strong footing, some stabilization, and even some potential for growth.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm starting to feel like a fool because I've been predicting, a downward trend in the industry, and it's just not happening. I'm happy it's not happening, but I'm a little embarrassed there, Chip. I like to think I know everything, and this is cold.
That's one of the things it's good to be wrong about, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. But the last thing I want to talk to you about today is I really feel that no matter how great the economy is, and no matter how good people they think they are at their job, I always feel that there's more room for improvement. And I find that a lot of times that people aren't fully educating themselves. And I know the brands, for example, have got great programs, but so does AAHOA. And I've been learning a lot more about what you do to try to help boost the knowledge of your fellow hoteliers out there. Maybe you could just go a little bit and share a little bit about what you're doing with the educational platform at AAHOA.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to that, Glenn, because that's critically important. If you think about making sure that you are on top of your industry, I can give you no better example than Macy's right now. Great department store. We all grew up with it. I understand they had record sales over the holiday period, which is fantastic for them. But the reality is that whether it's Macy's or Sears or other places, those stores are closing because the economy is changing. So no matter how good the economy is, if you're not up to meeting the consumer demands of today, then you're going to fall by the wayside. And so we think the critical component to that, of course, is education. Technology is changing everything. I think I read the other day where Bitcoin is now the largest bank in the world. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but 4 years ago, 90% of people in America never heard of Bitcoin.
Right.
So if you're not staying on top of the current issues and you're not staying on top of where your industry is, you will get left behind in a hurry because other people are staying on top of it. With that in mind, 2 years ago, we held, I believe during the entire calendar year of 2015, we held 3 webinars. During the calendar year of 2017, which just completed, we held 94 webinars on just about any subject you can imagine as it pertains to hotel ownerships. A few years ago, we had no seminars. We hold these 2-day in-depth seminars for our membership, teaching them things about how to form a management company, how to develop a hotel from the ground up, what is the best pathway for financing a property. We did none of that a couple of years ago, and then this year we did, I believe, 4 of those in-depth 2-day seminars, all 4 of which were sold out. So wow. We recognize that there is a great thirst for education out there, and that things are moving so rapidly that you can no longer learn something, sit back and internalize that for a 2 to 3 year period. You must be constantly learning. And with that in mind, we're going to be constantly offering educational items for the consumption of our members.
As a matter of fact, just before we started recording this interview, I happened to, by coincidence, get an email from the AAHOA's Director of Education, Kat Mohammed, and she said that you host over 150 events every single year. I had no idea that you had such a wide breadth of events. It's pretty fascinating.
Yes, from our regional meetings to our town hall meetings to our legislative meetings, we have educational components to just about every single event we do, and over 150 events a year. In fact, I think quite a more than that in 2017. So, kind of the way we look at it, if it's a normal business day in America, more than one of every 2 business days we have an event somewhere.
Wow, that's absolutely unbelievable. So, how can people find out more about the educational programs?
Go to AAHOA.com, and we have an entire section there on what we're doing with education, and then go to our events page, and you can see actual educational events that we're having where you can attend in person. And the one thing we like to do here at AAHOA is not think that we know it all. In fact, we are always looking for ideas on how to expand education. So if any of our listeners are saying, hey, there's something I want to know about, and you call our office, there's a pretty good chance we can create a webinar to address that situation, bring in an expert to really to tell you about it, because we figure if one person has a question about it and they're willing to contact us, there's probably another 100 that have that same question.
Excellent. Well, if you are ready to do a webinar on how to complain about food, I'm your guy there, Chip. So think about that going forward. Before we wrap up, I just want to give one more plug. Be sure to join us at the AAHOA Convention and Trade Show, March 27th through 30th. I can't wait to be a part of that. It should be good. And Chip, any more shameless plugs that you might have?
No, but you started your show talking about Duetto and Red Lion as sponsors of your show. Mm-hmm. They have been working with AAHOA for years as well. Two fantastic companies. So this is kind of a dual plug here, and they, of course, have no idea I'm saying this, but I will just say great companies to work with. Good examples of what I talked about just a moment ago, staying on top of the industry. These are two leading companies that stay on top of our industry, and they're reaping the rewards of that, and we certainly support that.
As a matter of fact, I have Bill Linehan coming on the show. He's with Red Lion in just a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about that. And I'm going to be I'm going out to Vegas next week, and it looks like I'm going to be talking to Patrick of Duetto as well. So lots of great education happening, lots of things to learn out there. I love that you guys are listening to the show, and Chip, thanks so much for all of your support.
Thank you, Glenn. I look forward to seeing you soon.
I look forward to seeing you guys soon, and I will be all over AAHOA this year. I'm so excited to be participating in that annual conference, March 27th to March 30th. Now we're going to take a little break, and when we get back, I've got a great interview with Brian Quinn. He's VP of Franchising at Choice Hotels, and we really get into what they're doing with each and every one of their brands and what their value proposition is. So stick around. I'll be right back after this.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
From Eureka to San Diego and Malibu to Bakersfield, the California Lodging Investment Conference, CLIC, is one of a kind, focusing exclusively on our Golden States hotel market. CLIC was launched in 2016 by Craig Sullivan, a seasoned hospitality industry professional, to harness the knowledge of our industry leaders, support our community, and educate emerging talent. CLIC brings together lodging professionals from California and beyond for one day of learning, professional development, and networking. If you are an owner, operator, investor, broker, developer, lender, management company, brand, or professional services provider, you should plan on attending CLIC 2 on March 8th, 2018 at the Hilton Irvine Orange County Airport. We invite you to go check out the California Lodging Investment Conference website at cliconference.com for the latest details and sponsorship opportunities. Early registration now open. And as a listener of the No Vacancy with Glenn Hausman podcast, please make sure to use our exclusive discount code of No Vacancy when registering for this one-of-a-kind in California hospitality event that sold out in its very first year.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast. I hope you enjoyed that commercial break as much as I did, but I got to warn you, I don't think it's going to be as much fun as I got Mr. Brian Quinn with me, VP of Franchising with Choice Hotels. Brian, man, I've known you for a long, long time. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Glenn. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I think I got to open up with the first question. You have a new CEO. What's it like getting used to a whole different system of doing things?
Actually, it's I've worked for a lot of the major hotel companies, and it's fun and refreshing to be in a business where there's a smooth transition of power. It's been amazing.
And for those of you listening that are not aware, Pat Pacious, the new CEO, was already within the organization, so it's not as strange as having somebody come out. So.
Yes, I think Steve continued to give Pat more and more responsibility as he was ascending to the role. He's worked basically in almost every single department. He knows our franchisees, he knows our employees, and they were committed to the same culture. So again, it's kind of a refreshing experience for me because that is not always the case. Our employees are engaged and excited. Our franchisees are excited, and it's been smooth and steady and. continue to grow and take care of the franchisee.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a little sad because I didn't make it to your annual conference this year. So I feel like I'm a little bit behind. I feel like, thank God I have this podcast so now I could ask you all the important things that are happening. So I think what's new, before we get into these official talking points that I've been provided with, that you're going to answer. So what was the annual conference like, having the new CEO and creating that sense of consistency for everybody within the Choice family?
Yeah, I would say I think Steve and Pat did an amazing job. They appeared on stage together. They talked about each other's strengths. They talked about their commitment to the culture and the franchisee, and it literally went off without a hitch. The franchisees were clapping and cheering, and they know that Pat's got their best interest at heart.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. But, you're a franchise guy, right? So you got to go out there and, sell those franchises and stuff like that. So what are you thinking about today? What are your customers, being the franchisees, really thinking about and looking for today? And I don't want to hear, just select service. Everybody loves select service. We know that.
Right. No, I think I mentioned culture before. I think what's been really exciting for me as somebody new at Choice is Choice's commitment to the franchisee, and it really drives everything that we do. And we own a piece of the franchise-friendly space. That's important to us. We listen to our franchisees, and Pat drives that through the entire business. Look, strategically, what do we want to accomplish? We want to keep the pipeline strong. We want to make sure that we always keep the franchisee at the core of what we're doing and strengthen the proposition with them. Right. We're also looking at international a bit, which is kind of exciting for us. And I think if we stay on those three elements and drive those through the business, we'll continue to be successful.
So how do you make sure you stay on all of those things? Because we are in a world of fractured attention spans, and it's really hard to pay attention. As we're sitting here, I got a bunch of dings on my phone, a bunch of dings on my computer, and it's really hard to keep focus on what you need to do.
I agree. It's challenging times, but the industry is in a really, really good place. Unemployment is low. Interest rates are low. We're crossing the delta on supply and demand a little bit, but the aspiration to travel by the majority of the people in America is amazing. Take two of the groups. You look at the boomers and the millennials. Both of them, for different reasons, have incredible aspirations to travel. Boomers are retiring a little bit earlier than we thought and at a little bit quicker rate than we thought, and the number one thing that they want to do is travel. Millennials, on the other hand, hopefully they'll move out of our houses at some point, but they are incredibly keen about experiences, and they're focused on experiences almost to the loss of everything else in their life. The beauty is both of those groups are a bit value conscious, and that is also our customer, and that's where scale comes into play. We're everywhere anybody would want to go with all of our 11 brands. Right. So we're able to take care of those guests as they live through those aspirations.
So if this franchising doesn't work out, I think politics is in your future, because you managed to go great segue from one topic to something completely different. Very impressive.
We are based in the greater DC area, so appreciate that.
I was about to go on a rant about how nobody cares about us Gen Xers anymore, and quite frankly, I'm too tired raising kids and working to want to travel as much as those other groups that are out there.
You and I travel pretty much.
Oh, I know. I spend too much time traveling. I think this is day 10 that I'm on right now of this particular trip, which is exhausting for me, much of a relief for my wife, so she doesn't have to see me so much. But, when you're talking about experiences, it's interesting to me that the value proposition that Choice Hotels have seems to be more in line with where millennials are in financial state of their lives. Because they're younger, so therefore they're not necessarily, all Mark Zuckerberg, right? They're still trying to figure out their way. So how are you able with Choice Hotels to not just put a name on the building, not just say comfort, but make sure that it feels like it's connected more to the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think we've been able to do that with multiple brands. We'll take Cambria for a moment. Every Cambria that comes to life has a bit of the neighborhood story in it and reflects the local flavor. Where we can do some locally sourced foods, we will. Where we can do a nod to the community and the artwork and the sensibility of that market, we'll do it. Our commitment to Cambria includes an investment of nearly $500 million to grow that brand. We do that a couple of different ways. We do some direct investment, we do loans, and then we do key money. But as the franchisor, we see it as our responsibility to seed the ground and make sure that we get those key locations. And those key locations are ripe with a lot of the things that are important to millennials. And we can drive that experiential component and reflect the neighborhood and really give them an experience that will hopefully inculcate them to the company for years to come.
Yeah, and being that Cambria is the still newest of the brands, right? All new build properties, right? So it's interesting to me how the strategy of rolling it out. And you really, I think, with all the onslaught of brands right now, the company really has to be dedicated in order to make it successful. That's kind of the message that I'm getting from Choice. You really believe in it. That's why you're putting your money behind it, and that's going to make a big difference going forward.
Yeah, and just for a market update as it relates to sort of size and scale, between the open hotels in the pipeline, we're over 100 locations.
Hey, congratulations.
Absolutely, thank you. And it's been a great opportunity for the company, and great to see the hotels open. That's all about openings. Our other brand in the upscale space is Ascend, and we were the first in the space with the collection.
You are, and what really bothers me is that people don't remember that. And I remember when Steve Joyce made the announcement, I was blown away because it really transformed everything. And every single brand now has to have one of these collections, but Choice was definitely there first.
Well, you're going to hear it more and more. Choice was first, and we're currently the largest. And with that brand, we've also seen incredible growth. Between open and pipeline, we're over 200 hotels, and we'll open nearly 40 this year.
Wow. That's pretty huge. This is the time in the business where I wish I was sitting in your shoes, making all those deals, getting all those commissions. I'm just sitting here hoping somebody's going to advertise. And by the way, if you want to advertise, just drop me a line, Glenn at rouse.media. But really an interesting time. And you've got so many different brands right there. Right now, over 3,500 upper mid-scale and mid-scale properties. The U.S. alone, 1/4 of market share in that segment. That's unbelievable.
Look, we appreciate all the new entrants into the mid-scale business, but we wanted to remind everybody who the dominant player was. We welcome them to the business. It comes with its own unique guests and with its own unique franchisee. I think also here I've been impressed with Choice's approach. Again, having worked for a lot of the competitors, their commitment to making sure that the guest offering is robust enough, and we're becoming even more design-led in those brands, but that we're mindful of the cost to deliver that because of where those properties play from an ADR standpoint. And I think we've got that balance right. We can continue to see incredible demand for comfort and for sleep. A lot of people don't realize we have over 400 sleeps open globally. Right. We are the dominant player in mid-scale.
Yeah, it seems like Sleep In, though they're everywhere, it does seem like they were the sleeper brand, right? But you've got to give people more choices. Sorry for all the bad puns out there.
But
it must be really annoying hearing all sorts of Choice puns all the time, and everyone thinks they're screwed.
Well, when we had a CEO named Steve Joyce, and we worked at Choice, you could only imagine.
Yeah, and I see it's kind of like that same thing. I can't stand any headlines that make puns with Choice hotels. But the one that annoys me even more is anytime there's an article on London, people have to call it London's Calling, which is not funny at all. So, all right. So let's go on to some of these other brands. Sleep In, you said, is doing really well. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's really starting to evolve. You've continued to update it and change it over the last few years. What's the status of that brand, and how are you connecting with customers more efficiently?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of great things with Sleep In. One of our programs is called Design to Dream. And we've recognized, even in that space, we need to be a bit more design-led. Mm-hmm. Second thing that we've done to invigorate that and sort of have some excitement around that really came from our franchisees, and it's the Sleep Mainstay dual brand. Right. And our franchisees really were looking at the efficiencies of having 2 hotels in one building. You've got to get that right and make sure that the guest experience is handled the right way. And we think we've got that down. And what's also exciting is the guest gets a great experience. They get a more improved lobby. They get potentially an upgrade to the suite when it's available. But if it's just a transient stay, they're getting additional amenities. For the extended stay guest, they get all the robustness of a true extended stay offering with the energy of the transient guest as well. And we, very different from our competitors at Choice, have allowed the franchisee to enjoy all the efficiencies that come from that. So yeah, there's the back of the house opportunities that come with dual brand that some of our competitors are doing, but we're allowing the front of the house to be able to bring those to life as well. And that's really allowed our franchisees to take some FTEs out. You put that on a 10 cap, that's real money.
All right, so let me unpack this a little bit. That seems to be the new phrase out there, so I just wanted to get it in and feel like the cool kids. All right. So when we used to see multi-branded hotels, it used to be 2 distinct buildings on one parcel of land, not attached. And we saw a couple of projects here and there that might combine them. I feel like Choice Hotels has really done a great job at pushing that forward, and now everybody else is starting to follow. I want to talk a little bit more about those efficiencies, because what I see from the ownership side is how cool is that? But the first iteration of these buildings was you'd have to have 2 separate distinct sides, right? Mm-hmm. One side would be this brand, one side would be the other brand, different front desk people, maybe a combined pool and the back of house stuff. So why are you thinking now that it's okay to put them probably all together with one door?
Well, look, we're all living through what I call the Starbuckification of lobbies, right? So what do people really want in the lobby? Mm-hmm. They want to be able to work in the lobby. They want it to be a bit of free drinks. We have those too at some of our brands. Thank you for playing, Glenn. An opportunity to work, play, be alone, be together, and obviously have the breakfast come to life in those spaces.
Right. And I should say that we're having a conversation about the newest prototype that was released in May of 2017,
Absolutely.
which really heightens all of this.
So what we looked at is there's demand for transient guests in a lot of these locations and for extended stay guests. Mm-hmm. But the opportunity that the dual brand provides is you can execute an 80-room hotel or a 100-room hotel with 50 of each. Bring to life all the public spaces so that the guests can blend and take advantage of all those elements and bring to life that shared space, which is so important. But in the guest room is where we are very disciplined about bringing either the transient sleep-in experience or the extended stay experience. And specifically on the extended stay side, we need to make sure that the amenities with the kitchen and the other elements are in the room. But in the public space, fitness, manager on duty, sales effort, that drives an incredible efficiency for the franchisees.
I kind of feel like we're getting at the point now where almost why bother building a single branded hotel when you're looking at market mix? That extended stay component is so interesting, so popular. In fact, I'm doing a whole video channel with another company called Here to Stay TV because that extended stay market has taken off so much. So I would encourage everybody out there listening to really think about it. If you're opening a property, you might as well open a dual branded hotel because you get that right variable on how to attract the business. And I'm sure that you folks, come in and show people how to get those two distinct channels of business.
One of the most important things around that is making sure that the correct demand generators are there, right? If we're going to encourage our franchisee to build that product, and it does have incredible operational efficiencies, we've got to make sure the demand is there. So, you look for the traditional extended stay demand, college, medical, university, state capital, government institutions, those demand generators that call for those longer term stays. But there's also the transient guest zipping right by on the highway. We can service both of them.
Yeah, and I think that's really the key. Getting that longer term business, getting the people that just kind of appear out of nowhere, and making sure that you serve them lots of drinks in the lobby, like I said before. So you've already got dozens of these bad boys in the pipeline. I'd say like 4 dozen plus now, right?
Absolutely. I think we have nearly 7 or 8 open, and our pipeline's grown to nearly 50.
Wow, that's a lot. What kind of markets do you think that these guys are going to be in?
All of our products can go in all the markets. It's just being able to. I think the other thing that's driving dual brand that's interesting is just the cost of construction, available sites, right? So you may have the right demand generators there, some extended stay demand and transient demand, but can you find 2 sites to build 2 hotels? Right. This also solves that problem for you as well.
So why pair up these 2 brands? What is special about, obviously, the extended stay, but why the other brand?
Yeah, I think when you are looking at dual brand, you do have to have some commonality around price point and the psychographic of the guest a bit. So we look at where sleep is positioned in mid-scale. We look at where mainstay is positioned also in mid-scale with a nudge towards upper mid-scale in the extended stay space. Right. You want to make sure the guests can blend together, that the aesthetic works, that the materials and all the offerings in the guest room are a good match. Right. And a lot of the extended stay demand generators, we know having 2 brands in that space with Suburban and Mainstay, that is a cost-effective or cost-sensitive, price-sensitive customer, so that we knew that the sleep-in and a little bit of its value play in that mid-scale position would be a great marriage.
Right. And being that you're a public company, I'm going to ask myself this next question. I'm thinking that you probably have other opportunities to pair up other brands within the family to create properties, and maybe even add a third brand in a single hotel. I don't know if you think that's a possibility or not.
Well, it's interesting. We've seen some of our competitors to go in that space. We'll continue to monitor it. I think we want to make sure that 2 things. Can the franchisee be successful with it, the pairing of the brands, and is there a market for it? Right. So if it fits those 2 lenses, we'll continue to look at it and monitor it. And we've had some interest for some franchisees. And I actually even heard that there was a quad brand floating around out there. So we'll see what's going on.
That sounds like
exciting
like
times.
A lot of work. Yeah. Well, there almost is like a quad brand. Like in New York City, there's a couple of blocks that have 4 hotels all right next to each other. All
with the same owner.
Right. All the same owner. So it's one building, but the brands aren't necessarily with the same company. Right. So it's an interesting kind of hybrid model of having the one building but 4 distinct entities. I like where you're heading. We're having the combination of everything in one location, especially when you talk about that lobby. All right. But even though this is a quality conversation, yes, I'm going to continue with the really bad puns here. I got nothing. I've been talking all day here, so I got no choice but to rely on hacky humor. So, Brian, tell me a little bit about what's going on with the Quality Inn brand.
Quality continues to be one of the most important brands. It's the foundation of the business. It's our oldest brand. We just reached a milestone with that brand. We opened our 1,500th hotel in North Dakota. And, that brand continues to thrive. We continue to see RevPAR gains and likelihood to return improve. And it's also been a great landing spot for some of our franchisees as we went through the comfort strategy.
Right. That's interesting. And also, one of the things that I like about your company is that you could go from brand to brand, different life cycle, parts of the property. How much is that happening within your community of franchisees?
It's pretty significant. We do see quite a bit of movement. It's also a place, I think, at Choice where the franchisees, we call it sort of the stairway to heaven. They can start with a smaller hotel, maybe in the economy space, or a smaller limited service hotel, then they can move into mid-scale, upper mid-scale, and now even into upscale. And, it's been exciting to see our franchisees go on that journey. Ultimately, it's about the guest. Why do we have 11 brands in each of these segments? It's because there's a guest need for each of them. We try very hard to have good guardrails against the brands so we don't sort of eat our young and cannibalize each other there.
I joke around the big word is swim lanes this year.
Yes. They're absolutely important to a point. And I think each product, each brand that we have delivers a specific guest need. What's kind of a great foundation, though, of all of those things is making sure that we're always mindful of franchisee profitability and that the distribution systems are strong. One interesting thing as a franchisor of many companies, and if you have a Choice hotel out there, please take advantage of the systems we have. 2 that I'll give you a shout out on. One is revenue management, and it's shocking some of the hotels that don't take advantage of it. We have a proprietary program called Smart Rates, and on both of those, the hotels that participate, we see a significant RevPAR improvement. But we've spent a ton of money on technology. Please take advantage of it because it's a lot about the value prop of buying the franchise.
Now, I'm going to add more to that, and you could keep quiet there for a second because I know that this is an issue that's kind of frustrating, I think, to a lot of brands. They go ahead and they create all of these great tools and resources to empower the hotelier to be more successful, and then 80% of the people sometimes sit on the sidelines and don't even bother to take these. So let me encourage you, if you have a Choice hotel, use the systems that Brian is talking about here. They're there to help you. They're there to train you. They're there to make your associates as successful as possible. Man, I just can't stand going to these conferences every year, even though I missed yours this year. And
we won't hold that against you.
Yes, thank you. And you announce all these great things, and then people just don't jump into it. So it just drives me bonkers. It's just one of those issues that really frustrates me.
Just to dovetail off of that a little bit, and you had asked about Pat. Pat Patience, our new CEO, has challenged us to really keep the franchisee at our heart and in our mind. And one area he's stretching us is around cost. Look, there's a lot of pressure. Our franchisees are small business owners. These are family businesses. There's a lot of pressure on the business. Think about the Affordable Care Act. Think about wage pressure. Out west, you've got compliance. You've got competition, land costs, material costs. Another place that we can leverage our scale on behalf of our franchisees is how can we bring down some of the cost. So we take that incredibly seriously too. We have a robust procurement program. We've hired some folks to be in the advocacy space along with our partnership with AAHOA and AAHOA and U.S. Travel because we believe that's where we can have a positive impact. And we're continuing to look at opportunities to be able to help our franchisees on the cost side. Look, we got to make sure we're driving the top line, but we know for our franchisees it's about the bottom line. So we've got to make sure that we're helping all along that journey.
Right, because I think we're at the point now where top line is doing great, but those costs are really starting to creep up. And you're right, the labor costs are going to continue to go up and up and up as that talent pool. I mean, there's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of bodies to fill jobs, but there's not necessarily great people. And if you have that great person, I find it's very frustrating that they're like leaving to go for a job down the block for 50 cents more. So that's one issue that you're all thinking about.
And our industry has been great at that at different times,
yes.
right? I mean, this is the industry where you can start out as a desk clerk and end up as the CEO.
Right.
Or start out as a bellman and end up as a head of development at a major hotel company.
the time.
Yeah. So we should be retaining those people and giving them the pathway to have a long journey in the industry.
Right. So being that you've worked for a lot of different hotel companies, let's send a message to Pat. You want to retain this guy. Make sure he stays happy. Yeah.
I'll give you $20 after.
Yeah, I'll be here for you. I thought we negotiated 50, but all right.
I'm in franchise sales.
See, this is how deals are done. We go back and forth. So I want to ask you a question. What made you go into this crazy world of franchise sales? How'd you even find your way to this?
It's been quite a journey, and I just have to say, I got the travel bug as a kid. Mm-hmm. My mother worked for American Airlines at one point, and not everybody enjoys travel. I fell in love with it. I was lucky enough as a high school kid to get a job as a bellman. And between the airline connection and the hotel connection, at 17 I was flying all around the world, and in first class, paying $15 for a hotel room. And I'm like, this is a great industry. I'm going to figure this out. I did ops for 10 years, then moved over to franchise services, and then really started to learn a lot more about the franchisee and the owner and what they needed, and that turned me on. And I was given great opportunities at 3 or 4 companies to learn real estate and finance and franchise sales, and it's just an exciting part of the business to watch people's dreams come true and their families succeed.
That's really a great way of looking at it, because fundamentally, and I'm going to use that old cliche again, at the end of the day, it really comes down to helping small businesses be successful. And that's why I keep telling you guys to follow these programs that are out there. So any other advice that you could give to general folks out there in the hospitality industry, maybe on how to get to a position such as you?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One, just to echo Glenn one more time, all of the franchisors have spent a lot of money on technology and tools and systems. And again, if you're a choice franchisee, please take advantage of those. As it relates to a journey in this industry, right now I have an intern working for me. I'm a trustee of a small Catholic college north of Tampa. I've been able to bring some of those people into the business. Internships are a great way to come into this industry, learn a little bit about it, see if it's for you. And the other thing that works so great in hospitality is it is a networking industry. It is all who you know, and you get to meet a lot of people very quickly in this business. So if you do an internship or you do a sort of entry-level position and you fall in love with it, everybody that you work with can become part of your network and help your ascendancy in your career.
Yeah, that's great advice. And one piece of advice I would give to you listeners out there, if you're on the younger side and haven't achieved the success yet that Brian has over here, ask people to help you. We all want to help each other succeed. It's part of the natural way in the hospitality industry, I think. And then those people will take more of a stake in your future.
And it's also incumbent on us, that have arrived a little bit. And I have a few more notches to go, I hope. But we are responsible also for bringing people along. And I take that incredibly seriously. I would have never gotten to where I am without a lot of people looking out for me and putting the opportunities in front of me. So I've made a personal commitment to do that, and it's been exciting to watch other people's careers grow as well. We started to talk when we first were chatting when I came in about the importance of hospitality and being hospitable in the hospitality business. If you said, is there one other thing that I would share out there? It is that I absolutely believe in order to be successful in the hospitality business that you have to be hospitable.
Yeah, and be sure you watch that video at novacancynews.com. And listen, if you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed to the newsletter yet, shame on you. Text HOTEL to 66866 and you'll get subscribed to the newsletter. Isn't that easy, doing that way?
And please visit choicehotels.com.
Yes. Any parting words before we go into official shameless plugs?
No, we're talking to you from the lodging conference. Enjoy the rest of your conference. I hope everyone has a great end of the year.
Excellent. And I hope you guys have a great end of the year, too. I'm not exactly sure when this interview will end, but it will be in the next month or so before the end of the year is over. Brian, thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks, Glenn. It was great.
And be sure you check out choicehotels.com. Any special franchising website or anything like that?
choicehotelsdevelopment.com.
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 choicehotelsdevelopment.com. choicehotelsdevelopment.com. That was great shameless plug, and I like that I got to help you out here. So for me and Brian Quinn, I want to thank you for being here, and I will be back next week. That is, unless I finally decide to open up my own hotel in my backyard. I'm thinking of putting 4 brands. I've got one.
They've all got to be choice brands, though.
Yes, for sure. And there is no choice. It will be a quality hotel, and I'm going to get plenty of.
You will
sleep.
Be comfortable when you are.
And working with you will be my mainstay. All right, enough with the puns. I want to thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, Glenn.
I'll be back next week. Not sure any of you guys will be back next week after that, but thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.